I'm humbled, and I would like to say Krishna consciousness is the biggest award which we all have received. There's nothing greater than Krishna consciousness in this material world. It's an honor and privilege to be with all of you this evening. I've tried to share my thoughts based on what I've learned over the period of years in my journey of Krishna consciousness, with the hope that it will help you in your journey. Thank you so much for being there. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadame Vishwapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakalam Padakamalam Shri Guru Shri Utapadakalam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shwaita Kadada Shotati Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram. So actually today's topic is lifelong learning, how it can help in evolve in Krishna consciousness. But before we dive deeper into the subject, I would like to share how one can put lifelong learning in practice through reflection. I'm not sure how many of you reflect on day-to-day basis.
Not much. We hear, but reflection is a little less.
Does anyone reflect on day-to-day basis? Take out 10 minutes or 15 minutes every single day. Anyone would like to share how reflection can help you in your spiritual life? Any comments, any thoughts?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
So, the reflections, we do try to practice it, but not regularly. So, setting some small goals, like trying to finish your rounds in time, and if I don't finish it, I reflect on that at the end of the day. What was the reason behind it? Try to correct it next day. If during the day, if we displease anybody, whether it's devotee, non-devotee, doesn't matter. We try to reflect on it. What was the reason? Can it be a better way of doing it? And try to correct it next day. So these are few things I try to follow.
No, that's good to know, Prabhuji. It's important. It helps in big way. It's more to do with our journey as compared to anyone else's journey. So to evolve spiritually and materially, lifelong learning makes a big difference. And more than that, if we share what we learn, that adds more value in our journey. Because if we don't share what we learned, we end up forgetting what we learned, and then we start becoming complacent. We start going on the downward curve. As per the study done by National School of Bethel, people are able to retain what they learned when they share what they have learned with other people around them. So it's learning and sharing what we learn is in our interest, and it can help us evolve. Now, reflection, to put that in practice, we have to press the pause button. Many a times in this material world, we keep running behind quantity versus quality. Accumulating many things, unfortunately, which many of those things we don't even use, or we can live a good life without having those things. But that quantity has made us so much, or drags us in the direction that we at times forget to live a quality or improve the quality of life. So reflection can make us, help us reinvent in our journey, help us focus on the right thing. Would like to share few stories which actually taught me some lessons which I try to apply in my life. Few years ago, I was traveling by one airline from Mumbai to Ranchi. Ranchi is a city in Jharkhand, one of the big states in India. So while I was on my flight, I was seated in seat 3B. There are 3 seats on each side of the row. And there was a person who was sitting in on seat 3E. As the flight took off, the steward came. Steward was going from one seat to another seat to another seat to another seat, checking with people if they would like to order something. And when the steward came to seat, row number 3, he started inquiring from everyone, would you like to place an order for something? So the gentleman sitting in 3E, he was an elderly senior citizen gentleman. He ordered for bhel. In India, many people eat bhel puri. So along with the bhel, they gave him packets of chutneys, multiple packets of chutney. And when he opened, I mean, all this had come in a big box. So when he opened the box, I mean, he had the dry bhel along with uh, different chutneys. Brown chutney, which they get, it's made of tamarind. And there is green chutney, which they get, it is made of coriander and other things. So when he opened the box, I mean, when he saw these different pouches of chutneys, which is in liquid form, he asked the steward, how should I open this? Is there a way you can help me open this? The steward told him, you open it with your teeth. So, and he gave a sarcastic look. He said, he asked him a question, is this the official protocol? The steward said, no, this is not an official protocol, but we don't have an opener. That's the only best way I can suggest, open with your teeth. So this gentleman looks at the steward and he says that, I'm a senior citizen, but can't you look at my age? And if my teeth break, will you take responsibility? The steward decided not to respond. He kept quiet. He didn't say a word. And this is something which agitated this person all the more. And he said, I mean, if you can't accommodate my request, then you better take this back. And the anger was going on the peak. And the steward actually told him, you can't, I can't take it back because you opened the main box. So I can't give this to anyone else. And it had the dry ingredients of the bale, which he had already opened. And this was going on back and forth, back and forth. And it ended, I'm cutting the story short, that it ended at a point that gentleman said, I'm going to escalate this matter to the higher authorities. You don't know who my son is, and this is what I'm doing, XYZ things, blah, 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 and many other things. And after this, the thing got over, and I was thinking, in this case, this gentleman is going to escalate. He's going to, go and escalate it to different levels. I mean, wherever, depending on the contacts he has. But in the Vaishnav community, many a times, as Prabhuji said in the beginning, that, I try to reflect on, if I hurt someone during the day to see why things went wrong, or I try to reflect on those things. But in our Vaishnav community, many times we don't realize we end up offending many Vaishnavas. And in that case, the escalation directly goes to Krishna. Because Krishna takes, direct interest in the lives of Vaishnava. And then that escalation is huge. It's a very big escalation, and it impacts us in big way in our journey. So this whole thing taught me how to be, one should be mindful and sensitive towards others, especially irrespective of whether we are dealing with devotees or non-devotees, because we never know it. In many a times, someone who externally looks non-devotee, in reality could be a very big devotee. So we all know Pundarik Vidyaniti, I believe, who later on became the guru of Srila Gadadhar Pandit. I mean, how externally he looked like a non-devotee, the way his demeanor, the way he was carrying himself. But internally, when Gadadhar Pandit heard him speak Bhagavatam and his absorption in Srimad Bhagavatam, he realized his mistake and he decided to surrender to him. So these are small incidents of when we, for reflection, the best way is to press the pause button. I said, we keep running behind quantity, and many a times we forget about quality. And if we learn to press the pause button in different intervals or after we are experiencing certain situations, that situation can help us learn some lessons. And if we apply those lessons in our life, it can only help us evolve in our journey. It can only help us become a better devotee, a better human being, and a better person who's loved by everyone. Like Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, they were loved by both the ruffians and the devotees. So that's the position or they commanded in Sri Vrindavan Dham. They were loved by everyone. And I think somewhere reflection can help us evolve in our journey, move in that direction that we are loved by everyone, irrespective of whether that person wants to take up to Krishna consciousness or not, whoever he is. But he loves you for doing what you're doing. And that love can someday or in probably the next life can help that person in, um, you know, evolving in the journey of life. So lifelong learning plays a big role. I remember about a year ago, I was traveling from one place to another place, and I wanted to check the traffic updates on while I was driving, because it's a lot easier to, instead of checking on the mobile, I don't have a video screen in my car. So I turned on the radio to find out, how does the traffic look like. So when I turned it out, there was an RJ who was talking about a villain named Pran. Pran used to be the villain in the movies in 1980s. And she was talking about, how Pran, any movie he touched was a blockbuster hit. And Amitabh Bachchan is a famous celebrity in India. Every child knows in India Amitabh Bachchan. He apparently reads Bhagavad Gita every day as per his interviews. And the lady was saying how Amitabh Bachchan, in spite of being one of the biggest celebrity or the hero in multiple movies, Pran being a villain used to command 5 times more premium than Amitabh Bachchan. And this kind of made me curious because the numbers, usually we try to figure out why this person is getting more. And I was out of curiosity, I Googled and read about this person named Pran. When I dive deeper, I read about him. I realized that he works on a 4P model. So whichever movie he was doing, he would ensure that he picks the right talent, right person for that particular movie. So that was the first P. Second was he would personalize his relationship with every individual who was part of his crew. And that personalization helped people didn't give their best or deliver premium quality in whatever they were doing. And they always focus on premium quality. There were times the director would ask that, let's move on to the next scene. And the Pran would say, no, I'm not satisfied with what we have shot. It could be better. And he would continue. It rarely happens that way on the job front. And many a times in Krishna consciousness, if the senior says, okay, let's move on, very rarely we say, no, we think we can give it better. And all this I realized helped him in, the whatever movie, whatever he did. I don't know all the movies he did, but those movies were blockbusters. So he would put his life into what he did. So that in Hindi, that life is also known as Pran. So are we putting our life into what all we did? And this gentleman achieved a lot of success by following this model. And I felt if we follow this model, our life would be success. If we pick the right person or associate with right people, and if you personalize relationship with those people, and then you to focus on giving premium quality in Krishna consciousness, no shortcuts, and give whatever best we can do for Krishna. And then our life will be a blockbuster in the sense we don't want to have the name, fame, adoration, or any of those things, but whatever best we can do that can help us in serving many more people, or many more people will look up to us, will easily take up to Krishna consciousness. And one personality who comes to my mind in ISKCON, we have many examples, and Yamuna Mataji is one of the amazing examples which comes to my mind when I think about lifelong learning. We see whichever field it was, and Yamuna Mataji was on the top in those days. Whether it was singing, whether it was cooking, she was into it. And we all know in the West, I mean, the movement from 26 Second Avenue, it moved to Great Ashbury in California, San Francisco, and from there how it expanded. And from there, Srila Prabhupada sent these 3 couples to to preach in London. Then they were sent with nothing. They didn't have any money. They didn't have facilities. They practically went with nothing. The money which they had was only money given to them to obtain the visas for United Kingdom. So Gurudas Prabhu, Yamuna Mataji, Sham Sundar Prabhu, Malti Mataji, Mukund Maharaj, Janki Mataji, all three couples were sent to preach at a place where many had failed in the history. We all know that during Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's time, there were multiple devotees who were sent to preach in this region. And these were some of the stalwarts in Krishna consciousness who were sent. And here you find Srila Prabhupada is sending somebody who is recently taking up to Krishna consciousness, and he's sending them to preach in a different country, which is very different than. And then when we read or dive deeper into their life, we realize how they were continuously learning new tricks of the trade and what all they can do, continuously thinking what else they can do for Krishna. Yamuna Mataji was continuously learning new recipes. She would cook, and they had a dream to preach to or transform the Beatles. Beatles were one of the biggest groups in those days. Whatever records they made were creating history, and they had a bigger dream. They had, many a times somebody, when you think at that level, or have a thought process, and somebody might say, "You guys are crazy. You don't have any money. You don't have food. You are hardly making a living or surviving with some donations or basic. You're not even able to make your ends meet." I remember, Malti Mataji used to sleep in boxes with a small daughter named Saraswati. So that those were the days, and in that situation, they're dreaming of preaching to the Beatles or transforming the lives of Beatles. And Yamnataji learned different preparations which he could make, because Beatles had a famous record company which was the Apple, not the Apple we have right now, the iPhone Apple. There were different Apple records. And she would try to make different recipes from apple crust, apple pie, apple, some berries and apples and multiple things. And she would, ensure that it reaches to Beatles. They figured out channels, they learned different things, how they can get to them. And then, from almost living like beggars in the street, they were soon living in the estate of John Lennon. And this is the power of Krishna consciousness. And if we go back again deeper, they picked the right person or right personality in form of Srila Prabhupada, and they had personalized relationship with him, focused on giving the premium quality, and their lives, whether it was Yamuna Mataji or anyone else, you see, it was a blockbuster hit. And by doing so sincerely and following the Guru, Acharya, Sadguru, Sadhu Shastra, and Yamuna Mataji was then invited by George Harrison to sing, Krishna conscious bhajans and create a record. He invested in them, and he said, we'll create a record of whatever Hare Krishnas do. And we all know with the famous, the invocation prayer we have, and not the invocation prayer, but Govindam Adi Purusham, we see how she sang, and it won hearts of millions of people. It was the number one track on multiple radio stations in those days. It was conquering the world. And when Srila Prabhupada first time heard that, he said this should be played in all ISKCON temples across the world. And then this is how it's a lifelong learning. If we dive deeper into her life, she was continuously learning. And whether it was cooking, whether it was singing, and that learning helped her be continuously absorbed. That learning was centered around Krishna. That was not an ordinary learning. It was all continuous learning. Was that how I can do better for Krishna, how I can evolve further in Krishna consciousness, how I can serve Guru Krishna, Guru and Gauranga. And then this is the power of lifelong learning. If we see, if you see Jayanand Prabhu, he leveraged on his mechanical experience to make different chariots for Jagannath Rath Yatra in the West. And then if we see, he was also learning different things, or what else he can do in Krishna consciousness. And being a qualified person materially, he decided to drive taxi, because he learned that if I go in the corporate world and all, and it's a world where you tend to get proud, you can tend to get stuck in Maya. And we wanted to stay away from all those glamorous things, and we decided to drive taxi. As a temple president, he was driving taxi, he was doing everything possible he could do to serve devotees, serve Guru, serve his Guru Maharaj. And we see how his life was a life of grace and an amazing life. His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj, if we see in an amazing personality, how at the age of 50, I remember, he had once given lecture in ISKCON Jew in Mumbai, and somebody asked, Maharaj, I mean, what's the need for you to go to university at this age of your life? And he gave an amazing, profound answer. He said, the moment I think I know everything, at that moment, there is no room for me to learn. And I will, won't be, there is a lot that needs to be done for Prabhupada. And for that, I don't mind going to university. He said, all these PhD scholars and many people in this league, they don't even know about Krishna. They don't even know about ISKCON. And for me to give them pressure or, bring Srila Prabhupada in their life or ISKCON in their life, the best way is to get into their league. And for that, I mean, he registered himself as a student in Oxford University. He would go in sannyasi dress. He was able to build relations with the professors. By building relations with the professors, slowly and gradually, he was able to get best of the professors connected with Krishna consciousness. And he's also, I think, trying to recollect. He said, when it comes to learning, I can live forever. But when it comes to continuing the way we are continuing with the life, it's better I die now. Something like that. He made this statement. So he said, it's all about how we continuously learn from different experiences. And one of the experiences which made him embark on this path was on one occasion he was in one of the airports, and while he was in the airport, he asked somebody for the time. He was not wearing a watch. And that person looked at him and decided not to even let him know the time. And at that time, he kind of felt that, our movement or our people need to be respected at different levels. The way people treat us in many of the Western world, they look down upon us. They don't even give the time of the day. So that reflection kind of helped him, or reflection kind of made him realize that there is lot needs to be done and done to take Krishna consciousness to classes and masters, especially classes, the intellectual class. So instead of asking him, he could have asked his disciples to do the need. But as a leader, he decided to follow on that unexplored path and set an example for others so they can follow his footsteps. So this was a bit on lifelong learning. If we dive deeper also in the life of Vishnujan Swami, Radha Damodar Vilas is an amazing book. If you get a chance to read it, how few devotees were traveling from one place to another place. They had the Radha Damodar party, and they were traveling to different places in America. And then one particular leader, His Holiness Vishnujan Swami Maharaj, was continuously learning different ways of engaging people, different ways of bringing people to Krishna consciousness. Somebody shared in New York and New York temple where he spent some time. He used to, every Sunday there used to be different kind of plays and other things which they would do to ensure that the crowd which comes on this Sunday enthusiastically comes even on the following Sunday. So these were the different things which they were doing, continuously learning, continuously evolving, continuously sharing what they were learning with others. And the learning is an amazing thing. It actually charges us up. It ensures that we are continuously, helps us in being enthusiastic. It helps us in evolve in our journey. So with this, I would like to open the floor to any one of you if you would like to ask questions or you have comments.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for sharing this wonderful topic that you really touch upon life of many devotees who actually was like evolving themselves to improve themselves, right? And building a personal relationship with, like, the devotees around them, giving a premium quality of effort, what they have, like, giving an example of Yamuna Mataji, Jananda Prabhu, like, making Jagannath Chariot improving day by day and have that Bhakti happen. Vishnujin Swami, how he built the relationship with so many devotees, and I've heard from many senior devotees, like, they were touched by his like, that spirit he had, and they were able to connect in Krishna consciousness very deeply, and that's why they were like able to dive deep and stay in Krishna consciousness for this many lifetime, like, this whole life they could give to Srila Prabhupada because of him. So a very wonderful talk, like, how we should be focused on our journey, that like that continuous learning has to be there. As you mentioned, I think some people were talking about, like, it's, I would rather die, like, by saying the same, rather than I could live eternally by learning. Like, I think that quality, that consciousness, definitely one has to develop. So before going to the floor, let me share. If anyone has questions, please go ahead. So I'll ask a question, Prabhu. So you talked about, like, in this topic of evolving ourselves in Krishna consciousness. But am I evolving correct? Right? Am I doing the way I'm supposed to do? Like, by my consciousness, I'm thinking that, oh, this is the practice I'm trying to do. This is the way I'm trying to learn. So how to really know the track I'm going through, the path I'm going to take is a very right track.
So so we have to point. I mean, that's the reason we have to leverage on other strengths also. In addition to doing our own reflection, many a time it also helps if we leverage on other strengths, the ones who are following or are fixed up in this path, who can guide us, who can show us the way, because they are already on this path and they are already evolving this path. So it always helps in having open conversations with devotees who are advancing, so that we can learn from their experiences and reflect on our own experiences and connect the dots to see which are the areas where we need to take certain steps so we can also evolve in our journey. And in the material world, they call it, you always cross-check or double-check. So this cross-checking, double-checking can also be leveraged on Krishna consciousness. And that needs to be done with people with right mindset. We cannot catch anyone and everyone. And then for that, we need to leverage on our intelligence. So I hope I was able to address your answer.
Thank you.
Question.
Yeah, this cross-checking is there, but I mean, sometimes I mean, we tend to think that actually what judgment I have based on, like, what I'm been thinking, or it is correct. I don't need to cross-check or double-check. And sometimes it becomes too late, like, oh, I did a mistake, or it was a wrong experience or wrong kind of judgment I made, right? So how like, or we just seek guidance all the time. How is it?
See, whenever possible, if you're, I mean, they say, I mean, there are 20% of decisions which are crucial for 80% of your life. The 20-80 formula they apply in for the business world on multiple fronts. In the they say 20% customers bring 80% revenue. So in this, like 20% which are crucial decisions, it makes sense in cross-checking, double-checking, but the 80% which are part of our routine, at times we can, follow our own intuition and based on the past learnings which we have gained, and see what best we can do. So every time it might not be possible to take guidance for every small thing. But wherever possible, some of the big decisions which can have a big impact on your life, big impact on the moment, big impact on the relationship with the other person. I think I think those are the things which we can cross-check, double-check, and in kind of the other non-crucial or things which we do, if we end up making mistakes, we should admit our mistake and evolve on that front. Evolve on that front and ensure that we are able to take corrective action, preventive action in the future. In the world of quality, they call this kappa. Um, they do kappa audits, so that these are kappa audits done with an intention that we find out faults in the systems and the processes which are laid out in corporate world to see how we can evolve further. So the whole kappa is corrective action, preventive action, which can only help the organization grow. And if the same is applied, it will help us as individuals also grow in our life.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu, for sharing that. So, Shraddha Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for such an inspiring lecture. Middle of the week, so these sanghas just help us stretch through the entire week, and then finally come to Saturday and Sunday where we get the devotee association. So thank you so much for each and every inspiring example that you presented from outside the devotee world and the devotee world as well. So thank you so much for that. So Prabhu, my understanding is that humility and compassion are the two qualities that we need to nurture and imbibe so that we can at least call ourselves good devotees. How to learn those qualities from what we experience, because when we listen to the lectures, they really inspire us, but when it comes to application, I've seen it for myself that I've often failed than not. And especially compassion, humility, of course, that fight with the false ego is there. And then compassion, most of the times, rather than feeling compassionate about people who are not ready to listen to us and being patient with them, we just think, oh, what a fool, they don't know where they are going, and things. So how to prevent ourselves from those kind of situations and actually learn humility and compassion from our surroundings?
Mataji, in the Bhagavad Gita, there's an amazing verse which is Prakrite Kriyamanani Gune Karmani Sarvasha Ahankara Vimudatma Kartaham Iti Manyate. I think this is the biggest roadblock which comes in many people's lives, wherein we start thinking we are Karta, we start thinking we are someone, we start thinking we identify ourselves with our status, with our designations, the so-called material designation. And that kind of comes as an hindrance in practicing humility or compassion, because we get caught up in the concept of I, me, and mine. It's about me, it's about my life, it's about that I'm someone in this world. And then it's at times very difficult. And if we regularly list down the things we should be grateful for, many times we don't practice gratitude, because gratitude brings humility in big way. And if we start being grateful for, and we start seeing Krishna's hand in what good has happened in our life, and how Krishna has played a big role in our journey, then we start acknowledging Krishna as the supreme. Although externally many a times it's a lot easier to say Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vikas. But in putting it in practice is a challenge. When we start reflecting on, again, reflection makes a big difference. We start reflecting on how Krishna has played a role, or Krishna has taken care of us, and I'm sure everybody goes through multiple situations, and then when we are able to evolve those situations in our journey, we realize, oh, this is only possible by Krishna's mercy. I don't think otherwise I would have been able to get through this situation. But what happens over the period of time, we tend to forget those good things which Krishna has done for us, and we start, continuing with our own previous conditioning, and that kind of impacts us, and that's why it helps when we are learning something new, when we are trying to evolve in our journey, we start sharing. That's why Prabhupada says preaching is the essence. So we start helping others, trying to see whatever I learned, can I leverage on this learning to help others evolve in their journey. And in the Bhagavatam, it says that we can serve in 4 ways. Etadat janma safalyam dehinam ya dehishu prane rarther diya vacha shreya charanam sada. that every individual in this human form is meant to serve others, meant to serve others, and everyone can serve, irrespective of one's position, whether he's rich or poor, or depending on one's time, place, circumstance. Everyone can serve either through one's pran, which is life, either through one's intelligence, wealth, artha, diya, intelligence, and vacha, through one's words. So every individual is blessed with that capacity. But are we leveraging on that capacity? If we analyze the lives of Sri Yamuna Devi and leaders like those, I mean, they had nothing. They had nothing, and still they were able to make an impact in others' life. And if you hear the offerings of which many devotees have made, then Yamuna Mataji could have been at a very different level, but she chose not to be at that level. She realized that she will become proud. She will not be able to, it will impact, it might not come in her way of becoming humble, which is the most important ingredient to succeed in Krishna consciousness. Okay, humility attracts Krishna, directly attract Krishna. Arrogance and our status and designations don't. Otherwise, Krishna would have eaten at Duryodhana's place compared to Vidura's. Vidura being a stalwart, he was the biggest difference between the two was humility. Vidura was extremely humble, and he was on the other end, Duryodhana was extremely arrogant.
Yes, again, beautiful examples, Prabhu. Thank you so very much. Prabhu, could I ask another question?
Sure.
This is not related to it. It's kind of a personal question to you. Like, you are a devotee, but you are also somebody who's neck deep into corporate world. How do you strike that balance of when you are in out there doing your prescribed duty, in the corporate world, keeping that devotee thing like really intact, not letting it get impacted by what you're absorbing from your surroundings? So how do you strike that balance?
So one of the things which I learned from, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a personality by the name of Prachini Parishad, and Narad Muni actually preaches to Prachini Parishad, and when he preaches to Prachini Parishad, he actually doesn't tell him that, these are these 10 faults in you. He actually narrates him a story of Puranjan. And Prachini Parishad, when he hears that story, he realizes he's narrating my story. He doesn't realize that it's actually he's narrating. He thinks that he's narrating somebody, he's able to reflect on that story and able to connect the dots. But in reality, that story was actually meant for him, and it was his own story, which Narad Muni kind of conceived. He never, let him know that I'm narrating you your own story. So similarly, when we go in the corporate world, so I think would like to correct. The introduction, I think Prabhuji said I work as a general manager for a multinational company. Actually, I left that 2 years ago, and since about a year and a half, I have my own startup, which is more of the name for the startup is Mimo Potential. I realized in the corporate world there is lack of mindfulness within the organization. Although companies want people to be customer centric, but the customer centricity will not. It's not easy to drive customer centricity until there is employee centricity. I tried to dive deeper into promoting a concept which is for being employee centric, you need to be mindful inside the organization. So these employees could be mindful outside the organization. So with this concept of MIMO, they'll be able to achieve full potential in their journey as individuals and as organizations. Now in this, the programs which I've created are, there's one program which begins is known as the Wolf, which deals with worry, obsession, limitation, and fear, and it's inspired from the Bhagavad Gita. So that's how. The thing is, the knowledge which we have in Bhagavad Gita is it's something which is much needed in the world. And while they're talking about different quick fixes, leaders should have empathy, sympathy. The knowledge of Bhagavad Gita takes us beyond all of this. Sympathy for what? The external body which is going to get burnt after we die, or sympathy for ensuring that we are able to free ourselves or help others in freeing themselves from cycle of birth and death. And what I realized, people are caught up with n number of worries. In the Sanskrit, there is a saying, Chitta Chinta Samayukta Bindu Matra Visheshata. So Chitta burns us once, but Chinta burns us every day, and everybody across the world is caught up. And most of our worries are linked to obsessions because we are obsessed with certain set of things which create limitation and ultimately culminate in fear. So now if I have to give this as, Bhagavad Gita, these people will not, maybe not, are not ready, or they might not accept it's there. But if you package it in a nice way, and Narad Muni is an expert personality who actually through his example shows us how to do that. The best is the Prachini Barishad example, which how he gave the Puranjan story and transformed Prachini Barishad. So we have to find new ways, learn new tricks of the trade to see how we can help. The whole purpose is to serve the community. And the best way, if we are not able to serve with a direct way, if direct, even the medication world, if we see in Ayurveda, I mean, sometimes they give you in a capsule form because they know in the raw form you won't be able to take it. But in capsule form, you can take the medicine with the water. So whatever works best, we have to learn continuously how we can serve rather than have our own way of serving. And if it doesn't work, I mean, we need to reflect and reinvent ourselves so that we are able to achieve our purpose. So in case of beetles, Yamuna Devi, Mataji, she leveraged on all the apple preparations to connect with beetles. Regularly, they were sending the apple preparation.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. So what I would take away is reinvent and rediscover yourself and take the Vedic wisdom and repackage if need be, and then help
Yes,
others.
yes. Whatever best we can, ultimately we have, I mean, if we have been given the best gift, in Krishna consciousness, we learn to share. We don't learn to keep it to ourselves. We don't want to be in the Forbes list of top 100 richest people. But our aim is our richness is like by, how many people we are able to uplift, how many people we are able to impact. And in the material, it is reverse. I think somebody recently shared, there are few wells which are overflowing, but the whole water is getting wasted. But there are few wells which are empty. But the ones which are overflowing, they don't want to serve the ones which are empty. But what Krishna consciousness teaches us is a moment of compassion, moment of paradukha. I mean, Bhakti Thakur says, in the material, usually people are paradukha sukhi and parasukha dukhi. But in our Krishna consciousness is the other way around. We try to see how we can, uplift others. If there are people who are struggling, so we see how we can help them come out of that situation.
Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you
Most
so
welcome.
much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.